Peach Blossom Det. Chapter 14. To paraphrase Donghua Dijun, in the entire heavenly court, there was no immortal more idle than me, Song Yao Yuan Jun, no immortal more flashy than Bi Hualing Jun, and no immortal more straight-laced than Lu Jing. The Jade Emperor made the best use of his resources. Of the immortals in charge of literary texts, Lu Jing was in charge of the rules of language as well as the organization and verification of official correspondence. Every one of Lu Jing's movements, from standing to lying to walking to sitting, was a rule in itself. In truth, Lu Jing was good at heart. For example, this immortal lord must have been quite the eyesore to him, going in and out of Wei Yuan Palace and Wenxi Hall all day long, but not once had he gotten indignant or criticized me. Instead, he simply tolerated it with magnanimity. When Nanming Dijun had found fault with me, he had also spoken up and put in a good word or two for me. He had my thanks for it. Each time I went looking for Heng Wen at Wenxi Hall, Lu Jing would greet me with a smile before his desk. When I saw him smile, I could not help but wonder how anyone could smile so primly. Then, considering I was there to look for Heng Wen Qing Jun to drink, attend banquets, and stroll around, I could not help but feel guilty for it. Heng Wen had once told me, "There's nothing for you to feel guilty about. If we were to swap places in the future, where you'd be sitting in that spot of mine, watching him stand at his desk like a pole every day for 800 or 1,000 years, you'd naturally grow to be on friendly terms. And now, with the three of us unrivaled immortals of the heavenly realm in one place, this simple, mortals in room teemed with divine aura." The great and ever-dazzling Bi Hualing Jun made himself extremely at home, taking a seat and pouring himself a cup. Taking a sip with his eyes half closed, he nodded. "Tea of the mortal world is unrefined, but tasty." Lu Jing presented a neat, square cloth bundle wrapped around an equally neat, square stack of official correspondence within. He set the pile before Heng Wen, conjured a brush and inkstone, rolled up his sleeves, and prepared the ink. All this so Heng Wen could read the official correspondence now. Bi Hualing Jun flicked his cup and sized up the guest room. The buildings in the mortal world are simple, but they have their own charm. I ought to descend more frequently, try them out. Heng Wen set the teacup in his hand far aside, straightened his clothes, sat upright, and picked up one official correspondence at random. Dragging out his words in a drawl, he said, "By all means, go ahead and try them in the mortal world. Did Lu Jing not tell you, by the way, that the heavenly court is now in mayhem because the northern heavenly gate can't be opened? A day or two on earth is merely a blink of an eye in heaven," Bi Hualing Jun said. "There's no need to rush. I have always been one to value friendships, so I surely must make the detour to drop in on my two fellow immortals." Thank you. I'm honored," Heng Wen said with a laugh. He opened the letter and focused on reading it. With his right hand, he picked up the fine brush and dipped it in ink. I could no longer hold myself back from saying, "It's late today. You should sleep first. Can't you read it tomorrow?" "Yuan Jun," Lu Jing said, "these letters must be read and reviewed before the scheduled hour. Each and every one of them affects the literary pulse in the mortal world. It must not be delayed." He said it so sternly and solemnly that all this immortal lord could do was shut up. Heng Wen lifted the brush and wrote a few lines on the letter. After a brief pause, he set the brush back down and closed the letter. He picked up the second one. "There are dozens of official correspondence," I said. "By the time these are all reviewed, it'll be dawn. As Bi Hua said earlier, a night on earth is merely a blink of an eye in heaven. Just how long of a delay can it be if he sleeps for a night before continuing?" Lu Jing pulled a serious look, not in the least convinced. Embarrassed to be making a din while Heng Wen worked, I could only pick up the teapot and pour myself a cup. Suddenly, Bi Hualing Jun spoke up. "I passed by the room next door earlier and saw the body of a bearded Daoist priest on the floor. That's the body you're using now, right? Minga Xing Jun sure has good taste." Despondent, I said nothing. Hualing Jun drank a mouthful of tea and continued, the two demonic beasts at the side are pretty decent too. Hualing Jun had a very bad habit of collecting rare beasts. Could he have taken a shine to the two little demons next door? In all likelihood, he had set his eyes on the fox. With a wry laugh, I said, it was all by chance that they tagged along with us. That fox is a snow fox, but its cultivation is average. A snow fox is not a rare species, or is it? This immortal lord remembered that Hualing Jun's residence had plenty of foxes, from one-tailed to nine-tailed, in all kinds of coat colors. The color of that snow fox is fairly pure, but it's indeed not a rare species. That mountain cat seems decent to me. He set down the teacup. I feel I may like to bring it back to the heavenly court. This immortal lord was astonished. I knew Hualing Jun's tastes had always been distinctive, but I had never expected them to be this particular. With a feigned laugh, I said, if you want one, you can ride a cloud out now to any random mountain and get your pick of something similar. With eyes half shut, Hualing Jun shook his head. You've no idea. You have no idea at all. I inquired. I can't tell you. I can't, Hualing Jun answered in a faraway tone. I stared and said nothing. Each time Hua made a trip to the Western Paradise, he would speak enigmatically like this for several days, but once the whiff of the Buddha on him had dissipated, he would naturally revert to himself. Lu Jing was standing solemnly before the desk. I suddenly had a thought, and asked him, have you heard in the heavenly court of any immortals descending these days? Other than Qing Jun, Song Yuan Jun, and Hualing Jun, the various immortals have been present for the morning call at Ling Xiao Palace every day, Lu Jing answered. In that case, are any of the non-attending or non-salaried immortals missing from the heavenly court of late? I pressed. This humble immortal doesn't know about the ones who don't attend court sessions. I was not expecting to hear any. I heard that rumors from Lu Jing's mouth, so I had little choice but to drop it. The immortals who attended the court sessions at the heavenly palace were all present. Then who among those non-attendees or non-salaried immortals could have saved Nan Ming? Meanwhile, Heng Wen was already done looking over several official documents, although there was still a tall stack left to go. I refilled the tea in his cup. Hualing Jun, on the other hand, covered his mouth to yawn, then looked all around him. Song Yao, which of these two rooms is better to rest in? It has been many days since I last had a moment, and seeing the bedding and curtains in this room is making me a bit sleepy. Hualing Jun put on a phony act of asking, but his eyes had already drifted to the large bed behind Heng Wen, where his gaze lingered. This immortal pretended to ponder the request, and said nothing. Eventually, Hualing Jun said, or this lord could just rest on this bed. I won't take up space when I sleep, so I'll sleep inside. Qing Jun, once you're done reading the official correspondences, you can just sleep on the outside. As it happens, there's another bed in the room next door for Song Yao and Lu Jing to sleep on. He yawned again and made to get up. Hua, I spoke up. You have not slept for many days, and both of them are here reading official documents with the lights blazing. I fear you won't get a good rest. It's fine, Hualing Jun said. I often rest in Maori Sing Jun's residence when I go looking for him to play chess with, so I've never feared the brightness. But this room is not as quiet as the room next door, I said. Besides, that mountain cat is there too. Don't you want to go and take a look at it? Hualing Jun beamed. As expected, Song Yao knows my heart like a soulmate. In high spirits, he passed through the wall to the room next door. I could only follow him, but before that, I turned back and nudged Heng Wen's teacup toward him. Drink some tea while I go and keep an eye on Hualing Jun. I'll be right back. All right, Heng Wen said, without even looking up. The tip of his brush paused, then he set down the brush, closed the letter, and started on the next one. I passed through the wall to the next room. The fox was coolly eyeing Bi Jun with its body half raised. Meanwhile, the mountain cat was huddled into a ball, sleeping soundly against the fox's back, a pillow under its belly. Bi Jun stared covetously at the mountain cat, who, surprisingly, remained totally oblivious. The fox arched its back, stood, shook its fur, and leaped to the ground, where it transformed into its human form. The fox discerned the situation. The immortal aura on Bi Jun was overpowering, so he instantly knew that this was an exalted lord. He respectfully lowered his head and greeted, "This humble demon is Xian Li. May I know which of the exalted lords in the heavenly court your esteemed self is?" The commotion woke the mountain cat. It opened its drowsy eyes and looked blankly around. Upon spotting Bi Jun, it gave a start and shrank into a ball, trembling. Bi flashed an affable smile. "Don't be afraid. This lord is Bi Jun of the heavenly court. I just so happened to have finished a job, and dropped by to pay my fellow immortal friends a visit. I'm not here to subdue demons." He approached the bed as he spoke. Acting natural, he set his hand on the top of the mountain cat's head. The mountain cat trembled all over and shrank into a smaller ball. Petting it, Bi smiled. "How obedient, how obedient." The obscene expression on his face made his fellow immortal friend, this immortal lord, sweat a little. Seeing the mountain cat trembling so pitifully, I finally yielded to my conscience. "Bi, it's probably shy with strangers and a little afraid of you. Keep your distance first. Don't scare the child." Bi Jun petted it some more, loath to part from it, but he finally withdrew his hand and stepped away. The mountain cat immediately scampered down to the ground and rolled to take on the appearance of that young, naive boy before cowering behind the fox. The fox subconsciously moved before the mountain cat to shield him from view. Bi Jun took a few graceful steps back. "You've already cultivated for nearly 2,000 years, correct? Your cultivation's pretty good." "Thank you for your high praise," the fox answered softly. Holding his hands behind his back, Bi Jun smiled. He veered suddenly toward this immortal lord's direction, and a few words as soft as the murmurs of mosquitoes wafted into my ears. Bi was using telepathy to communicate with me covertly. "Song Yao, are the fox and mountain cat from the same den?" I could only reply the same way. "Yes, the fox is the mountain cat's king. Of its entire lair of demons, only this mountain cat is left. So, if you are harboring designs on this mountain cat, please pardon this friend of yours for not being able to help you." Bi Jun, still standing with his hands at his back, smiled with an ethereal air of an immortal. Suddenly, he said, "Come with this lord for a moment," and floated out of the window. Momentarily taken back, the fox hurried to catch up. Meanwhile, the mountain cat, seeing this immortal lord as his backer, looked pitifully at me. I petted him, and followed them out of the window to watch the show. "That child is from your den?" Bi Jun asked the fox under the bright moon. "This lord wishes to bring it back to the heavenly court. Are you willing to let him go?" The fox was struck dumb for a moment before saying, "It's his blessing to have caught your eye. But while he might be from my den, I have never imposed any restrictions on the demons in it, and they are free to come and go as they please." So Bi Jun returned to the room once more and asked the mountain cat spirit, "Are you willing to return to the heavenly court with me?" The mountain cat grasped onto the front of the fox's clothes and clung close to him. He shook his head. Bi Jun gave a small sigh. "Never mind, forget it. This is all fated." Just that he brushed his sleeves and swept his eyes casually across the fox and this immortal both. "You better not regret it a few days later if you fail to persuade it otherwise." He walked over to the bed, and brushed the surface with his sleeve before rolling onto it to sleep. The fox looked uncertainly at Bi Jun. "I thought, Furball, you don't know this, but this Bi Jun has just come from the Western Paradise, and still has yet to pull himself out of that mindset. After Hualing Jun lay down, he looked askance at the ground. He shook his head, Song Yao, oh Song Yao. Although this Daoist priest's body looks like Lu Dongban's second master while he was in the mortal world, you have used him for quite some time. Isn't leaving him on the ground a tad too wretched? At least give him a wooden bench for him to lie on. You wouldn't know it, but a bench is narrow and uncomfortably hard, I explained. Might as well put him on the level and smooth ground. Bihua took a moment to consider my words. That makes sense, but I heard the ants, insects, and mice of the mortal world are all pretty impressive. Watch him carefully, lest he gets gnawed on. Bihua, you can sleep without a worry, I said. Ants and mice wouldn't eat this thing. Only then did Hualing Jun bid me good night and enter dreamland. The mountain cat, however, cowered behind the fox, still trembling as he looked at Hualing Jun. This immortal lord thought of bringing them over to the room next door, but Lu Jing was in that room standing ramrod straight in that solemn way of his, and Heng Wen would not be done with his official correspondence until morning came around. That left this immortal lord with little choice but to remain, sitting in silent repose. Only then did the mountain cat dare to jump onto a chair beside me and curl up to sleep. Probably figuring that it was hopeless to look for Heng Wen tonight, the fox, too, found another chair further away to lie on. Until daybreak. It was only after morning light that Heng Wen finished his official documents. Lu Jing wrapped up the correspondence neatly, and returned to the heavenly court with Hualing Jun. Before Bihua left, he even put on a show like he was loath to depart. Gentlemen, take care. I shall take my leave to the heavenly court, where I can return the key to the northern heavenly gate. When I have the time, I'll come and see you again. Heng Wen and I cupped our hands in farewell, watching with glad relief as the pair of figures vanished after the golden light faded. Having read through an entire night of official correspondence, Heng Wen looked exhausted. He drank 2 mouthfuls of the tea and shook the quilt open. Before lying down, he said, I've already told Lu Jing to drop Minga Xing Jun a reminder when he returns to the heavenly court. Minga Xing Jun had better not have really forgotten all about this mission. I tucked him snugly under the quilt. Exactly. Minga has a heavy workload, it's common for him to overlook things. Heng Wen yawned. You said you sat in meditation the entire night. Don't you feel like sleeping now? I sighed. The waiters will probably come knocking on the door later with water and meals. Before I sleep, I'll head down and inform the innkeeper not to serve us. It's so early, Heng Wen said lazily. How would the waiters be so undiscerning in attending to the guests? In all the previous inns, they would not knock on the door without a summons, and they would only take the initiative to come and attend to the guests at noon, right? So let's just sleep first. Perhaps that was the case after all. I lifted the quilt and climbed into bed. How could I have known that my head would not have even touched the pillow, and my eyes would not even have shut for a sixth of an hour, when knocking sounds would ring from the door. Mister, are you still resting? I was enraged. The day had only just broken. Which waiter was so undiscerning and tactless? With a frown on his face, Heng Wen raised a hand from the quilt and waved it randomly in the air. Send him away. I'll continue sleeping. Very unrighteously, he turned inward. I lifted the quilt and went to answer the door. I had only just opened it a crack when I heard the waiter say, "You've finally gotten up." This young master said that he has something to, The waiter gaped wide-mouthed in astonishment, and my heart went cold. Oh no, how muddle-minded was I! To think this immortal lord had forgotten to repossess Guanjian's body. To think I had answered the door in my true form. The waiter sized me up and down, stammering, Mr. This humble one remembers that this room, and the room next door were booked by a Daoist priest and a young master with the surname Zhao. Did I make a mistake? Why, young master, may I know who you are?" This immortal lord was extremely dejected, for standing behind the waiter surrounded by a few attendants, was Mu Ruian. A pair of eyes stared fixedly at me. Even in my dejection, I still wondered why Tiancha was here so early in the morning. I opened the door fully, and flashed a refined smile at the waiter. You didn't make a mistake. Young Master Zhao is in this room, he's still sleeping. I looked at Mu Ruian and put on a gentle smile. Is something the matter for all of you to come calling so early in the morning? The waiter's voice faltered. Why young master, you are. Did you forget? I gasped in astonishment. This humble one is young Master Zhao's elder cousin. I came to this inn looking for my younger cousin in the middle of last night. If I recall correctly, you were the one who led me up here. The waiter, now befuddled, scratched his head. This humble one doesn't remember. I frowned. Don't tell me it was someone else? I was in such a hurry last night, I didn't get a good look. I reached into my sleeves and conjured out a silver piece. It was all. Thanks to you for making concessions and leading the way for me last night, but I was rushing to find my cousin and forgot to give my thanks. Please accept these bits of silver as a little token of my appreciation. The waiter was no match for this immortal lord's great wisdom, and accepted the silver with a beam on his face. Right, I remember it now that you've reminded me. You arrived, all travel worn, last night in search of your cousin, and this humble one led you up the stairs with a lantern. You're truly too kind. I was only doing what was expected of me. Anyway, this young master said he has something of importance to discuss with young Master Zhao and the Daozang. Why don't you speak to him first? This humble one shall take my leave. Just call for me if you need something. He retreated with a grin on his face, leaving this immortal lord and Mu Ruian looking at each other. I cupped my hands. It must be a matter of great importance for you to be looking for my younger cousin. May I trouble you to wait outside for a moment while this humble one wakes him up? Mu Ruian returned the greeting. In that case, I shall have to trouble you. A beat, then he added, this humble one is Mu Ruian. May I ask for your esteemed surname? It's an honor to meet you. This humble one is Zhao Heng's elder cousin, I cupped my hands and responded. It was at that moment that I remembered our first encounter, how, several thousand years ago, I had waited at the side to prostrate myself to Tiancha Xingjun on the floating clouds. This humble immortal is Song Yao, a newcomer to the heavenly court. Greetings to Xingjun. I could not help but answer in a gentle, unhurried voice, my surname is Song, and my given name is Yao. If young Master Mu doesn't mind, you can call me Song Yao. End chapter. Peach Blossom Det. Chapter 15. Feeling a little emotional when Mu Ruian said thank you, young Master Song, for your trouble, I retreated into the room to wake Heng Wen up. Before I could turn to the side, I heard Heng Wen say from behind me, is that young Master Mu? This humble one had yet to wake up earlier and thus was unable to greet you. Please do not hold it against me. The door creaked. Heng Wen was already standing beside me, all done up in a light azure robe. There was no way to tell at all that he had just crawled out of bed. Naturally, Mu Ruian had to answer that it was too presumptuous of him to come over so early in the morning, disrupting Heng Wen and my sweet dreams like that. He exchanged a few words of pleasantries with Heng Wen, after which Heng Wen let him into the room, leaving the few bodyguards to stand by the doors. Inside the room, they politely offered each other seats before Mu Ruian finally settled down at the table. Is Guanjian Daozang still sleeping in his room? Heng Wen picked up his worn folding fan and waved it as he answered, that's right. Daozang is advanced in age, and he's probably a bit tired after taking the boat yesterday, so he retired early to his room. I don't know if he's cultivating in silence or sleeping, so it's not convenient for this humble one to disturb him. If young Master Mu needs to look for him, you can try knocking on his door. I stood beside the table and circled twice before dragging over a chair for myself. This was clearly about me, but I could not butt in. The feeling in my heart was rather indescribable. Then I shall not disturb him, it's just the same to tell you, Mu Ruian said. War is impending in the southern commandery of late. Martial law has taken effect in Liuyang City, with military affairs taking precedence and the military having jurisdiction over the civilians. They have issued a new command yesterday to run a check on the city's population. He frowned, as if deliberating over his next words. I'm afraid the inns in Liuyang all have to be temporarily shuttered. While taking a break at a tea booth yesterday, this humble one heard that the two armies of the Imperial Court and the Eastern Commandery are pressing in toward Liuyang. Heng Wen said. Presumably, General Shan intends to fight it out to the end on water, and in order to guard against spies, is clearing the city of people who have no business being here. They wouldn't even let us stay in the city. I could not help but blurt. Guanjian Daozang saved this humble one's life back at the inn in the Eastern Commandery, Tianzhi said unhurriedly, and I have still yet to repay him for this great kindness. This humble one has a modest residence in the city. If young Master Zhao and Daozang do not mind, you may come and stay at my residence for a few days. Heng Wen shut his folding fan, answering with a smile, Young Master Mu, you are clearly aware that I could still be an advisor of the Prince of the Eastern Commandery's manor, and the Daoist Master Guanjian is such an enigmatic character that he raises suspicions as to his motives, and yet you would still let us stay in your residence? Are you afraid that he pointed the fan at me, the Daoist Master Guanjian, and I would collude with the Eastern Commandery's troops? That we would act from within and without to harm General Shan? Even if these events really do occur the way young Master Zhao says, you've already revealed it to me, Mu Ruian said, so what is there to worry about? Heng Wen studied Tianzhi, and remarked, impressive, impressive. I almost blurted out those same words. In clearing out Liuyang City this time, Shan Shengling undoubtedly wanted to get rid of both this immortal lord and Heng Wen, lest he get sick of seeing us. And by inviting us to his residence at this time, one could guess that Mu Ruian was a man of noble character who trusted Heng Wen and me, or he meant to keep an eye on us under the guise of doing us a favor. Heng Wen's interest was promptly piqued. At his side, meanwhile, I gulped. I could almost see in him the little flame of enthusiasm that loved getting involved burst ablaze. Sure enough, young Master Zhao smiled readily. Since young Master Mu extended the invitation, this humble one shall not stand on ceremony. However, the Daoist Master Guanjian is still in bed. The checks will start only after the hours of noon. This humble one shall come to the inn again at the later hours of the morning to meet you. Young Master Zhao, would that work? Heng Wen immediately cupped his hands. Then we will have to impose on you. Thank you. Mu Ruian smiled. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Those clear eyes turned to this immortal lord's face, and paused. I felt that he was seeing right through me. Guanjianzi was this immortal lord, and this immortal lord was Guanjianzi. But Mu Ruian had now seen Song Yao. What was I to do? Before my thoughts could overtake me, Heng Wen adopted a solemn expression, and addressed me. That's right. Since they will be conducting checks at the hours of noon, you should pack now and depart the city before then. Instantly, Mu Ruian's eyes became lined with doubts. I could think of no excuse as to explain away such a hasty retreat, so I could only hedge it and say, no rush, no rush. Although the matter is pressing, it's not that urgent. Noon is not too late a departure time. Heng Wen's eyes narrowed as he smiled, and his voice was deeper than usual as he responded. That's right. I was so preoccupied with other matters last night that I didn't get to have a good chat with you. In that case, leave at noon. Mu Ruian stood. This humble one still has some other matters to attend to, so I shall not impose on you any further. Let's meet again in the late morning time. Heng Wen and I stood up and saw him to the door. The guards outside the door swarmed over. It was at this moment that there came a shout beside us. Excuse me, excuse me. Please let me through. A waiter carrying a basin of hot water turned sideways in an attempt to pass us. Heng Wen and I stepped back, while Tianchu moved to the side. The waiter tottered through, his back bent with the burden of his load. Perhaps it was the bright gleam from the bodyguard's weapons, but just as the waiter reached Tianchu, his hands trembled, and he faltered on his feet. A bodyguard threw a flying roundhouse before the hot water could splash Tianchu, sending both waiter and basin flying. Water splashed all over the floor, and the basin clattered onto the ground, while the waiter went crashing heavily. Right into the next room. The door slammed open, and the waiter let loose a string of tragic cries as he tumbled in. This immortal lord's heart missed a beat. Oh no! Beside me, Heng Wen let out a wry laugh. The bodyguards surged forth, a forest of spear tips bristling at the waiter, and then all at once, paused. The room held a fox and a mountain cat, not to mention quite a few rare objects. However, Captain, there's a Daoist priest lying on the ground. Guanjianzi, oh Guanjianzi! I have let you down. I've borrowed you for my own use, and should never have thrown you aside sleeping like a corpse. Mu Ruian's expression underwent a change then. He swept his gaze over Heng Wen, over me, and strode into the room. I had placed Guanjianzi in a spot with excellent geomancy last night. Anyone who looked in the room would spot the body lying stiff and hard on the ground. Look, young Master Mu, Captain, a bodyguard addressed them both. The way this Daoist master is lying is so strange. Their interest piqued. Mu Ruian and a big, burly man who must have been the captain made for a closer look. I dashed to the door, a smile meant to please plastered across my face. This Daoist master Guanjian is a great master with profound cultivation, and the actions of a great master are not what us mere mortals could fathom. Perhaps he is cultivating some secret and profound technique of a certain sect, and needs to lie on the floor to absorb the essence of the earth. The head bodyguard stroked his chin as if enlightened, but Mu Ruian knitted his brows into a slight frown. We are on the second floor here. How is Daoist Master Guanjian able to absorb essence from the earth? Heng Wen looked at me resignedly out of the corner of his eye. I held a fist to my mouth and coughed. This humble one was merely saying, it was a guess. Daoist Master Guanjian, he's a great master, after all. How masters go about their business is beyond what common people can fathom. Ha ha! Mu Ruian's frown deepened even more. I continued, the Daozang is cultivating and likely would not appreciate being disturbed. Young Master Mu said yourself earlier that you still have important matters to attend to, so don't let these trivial matters bog you down. You should hurry back first. The head guard moved closer to Mu Ruian and whispered, Young Master Mu, if I may, this person seems evasive with his words, as if he's hiding something. It's rather suspicious. Is there a problem? Is this immortal lord's 1,000-year elegance and poise not enough to send you mortals to your knees? When the head guard saw the cold gaze this immortal lord directed at him, he lowered his voice even more. Besides, this person comes from questionable origins. He's dressed like a dandy, but his clothing is in disarray, and he's such a slick talker. If I may, he's very suspicious. Heng Wen looked at me, again with helpless resignation. This immortal lord was miffed. Before my ascension, I had been considered a refined and distinguished young master in the capital city. The capital city counted all sorts of young masters among its stable, occasionally creating a ranking, and this untalented one even placed first once. This thick skin of mine had endured the vicissitudes of life and weathered thousands of years of hardship. It was not what it used to be, but surely it had not deteriorated to this low of a point? My expression frosted over as I straightened my back, adjusted the front of my clothes, and stood with hands by my side. The fox and mountain cat crouched on the bed, likely having taken the initiative to move there after this immortal lord and Hualing Jun left this morning. The mountain cat cowered behind a pillow the corner of the bed, its green, round eyes wide open, while the fox remained curled up, looking nonchalant. The captain used his eyes to signal the bodyguard still standing by Guanjianzi. The bodyguard caught the hint and immediately squatted down. The fox on the bed peered at the scene through its eyelids. Mu Ruian entered the room. The bodyguard extended a finger under Guanjianzi's nose for a moment, then pressed down on his chest, feeling for his pulse. He held down the side of his neck and lifted his eyelids before he turned back and announced, "Captain, this Daoist priest is dead." "Oh," Heng Wen blurted in astonishment and grief, "don't tell me Guanjian Daozang has passed into immortality." My face twitched. Or perhaps Daozang is emulating Li, the iron clutch of the 8 immortals, and his soul has left his body to go wandering on the astral plane. Mu Ruian stayed at Guanjian's side, looking down at him without expression. With what seemed like a sigh, he said, "Looks like we have to ask both of you to make a trip down to the local prefect's office." An hour later, Heng Wen and I stood in the main hall of the prefectural office of Liuyang. Guanjianzi had been placed on a stretcher, which the bodyguards bore to the office. He was laid out in the main hall as material evidence, right beside Heng Wen and me. This immortal lord and Heng Wen Qingjun could have simply fled on a gust of wind at the inn, but without accomplishing the mission handed us by the Jade Emperor, we did not dare expose our identities so soon. It would be bad if we manifested our true forms, displayed our abilities in broad daylight, and ended up scaring this crowd of ignorant civilians witless. So, we concluded, we might as well take a walk to the prefect's office and see what they could try on us. The fox had taken advantage of the chaos in the inn to make its escape. The mountain cat, on the other hand, did not manage to flee in time given its low cultivation, and Mu Ruian, having caught sight of it, had petted it for a moment before picking it up. The mountain cat seemed to have taken to Mu Ruian on the boat, and it cooed and nuzzled against him, letting him carry it onto the horse carriage. Heng Wen had quite the interest in the prefectural offices of the human world, and he sized up the place left and right, up and down. But I was afraid that he would admit to the crime during the interrogation just to satisfy his interest in the inner workings of a prison. The office runners were all yawning and the prefectural prefect had yet to hold court. It was then that I whispered, "So much for friendship. You left me to explain by myself just now without even helping." "You were speaking to Mu Ruian with such a glib tongue," Heng Wen said. "How could I steal your thunder?" He shook his head, as if rueful. This immortal lord was poised to respond when a loud noise sounded in the hall, signifying that the court trial was about to start. A person dressed in the blue attire of a civil official, supposedly the prefect, emerged from behind the screen to stand before it, but held his head low and hands down at his sides. He was immediately followed by another person from behind the screen. This time, it was an acquaintance. Nanming Dijun, Shan Shengling. General Shan, in a gallant manner, settled down on the old-fashioned wooden chair at the left. Only then did the prefect dare take his seat, beginning the court session. He slapped down the wooden block that served as a gavel and said, "The audacity of you criminals! Why are you not kneeling in the presence of this official?" This immortal lord and Heng Wen remained standing at leisure. Shan Shengling was seeing this immortal lord's real body for the first time, and he feigned nonchalance as he assessed me. The prefect smacked the wooden block down again. "How dare you to remain indifferent when this prefect is asking you a question? I ask again. How did you murder this Daoist priest? Confess now." This immortal lord really could not watch any further. "General Shan, don't you people from the Southern Commandery's prefectural office examine the body first before you hold a court trial?" Shan Chengling's gaze sharpened. "You know me." I held my hands behind my back and smiled enigmatically. Shan Shengling waved his hand. "Summon the coroner to examine the body." His eyes then shifted from me to Heng Wen, where it fixed into a stare, so much that this immortal lord became very displeased. Was staring at Tianzhu all day still not enough for Nanming, that he had to stare at Heng Wen too? The coroner came and examined Guanjian's body left to right. Using our telepathic technique, Heng Wen said to me, the officials in the mortal world are so muddle-headed. No wonder the commoners in the mortal world offered so much in incense and offerings to the heavenly court. It's indeed not easy for them to live. I replied the same way. There are decent officials too, but there are always more incompetent or corrupt officials. The common folks indeed have a hard life. That's why the heavenly court considers banishment to the mortal realm a punishment and tribulation. Why are there so many corrupt officials? Heng Wen wondered. You have a role in this too, Qing Jun, I said quietly. Take the prefect in this hall, for example. He had to pass through the imperial examination and emerge as a successful candidate at the highest level of imperial examination before he could become this fourth-grade prefect. The rise and fall of scholars' literary ethics and outcomes of the imperial examinations must first pass through the desks of your Wensi Hall. Heng Wen fell silent. After a moment, he said, when I return to the heavenly court, I'll personally sort out the files on literary ethics and write off all these messes. I was just making a dig at you earlier. Don't take it seriously, I said. Actually, there is a saying in the mortal world which puts it pretty well, 30% predestined. 70% man-made. Take your desk and old man Minga's desk, for example. How many books can the desks take? People come and go, live and die in the mortal world. There are countless human births and deaths taking place in just an instant. How can anyone interfere in every single one of them? You can indicate in the books for an ethical, wise, virtuous man to take up the mantle all you want. However, if he still can't win the favor of the emperor and officials in power after passing the imperial examinations, he would still be unable to be an official and put his talents to good use. That is why dynasties through the ages rise and fall, prosper and decline in turn. To think there are so many principles of truth in the mortal world. You do really speak like an immortal now. How rare, Heng Wen remarked. I've been in heaven for several thousand years, I said. Have I ever said anything that did not sound sagely? Heng Wen clicked his tongue. The coroner, finally finished with his examination of Guanjai Unzi, reported as he trembled, to report to General Shan and Your Excellency, there is nothing abnormal with this Daoist priest's body. This humble one did not see any traces of murder. These two bits of good-for-nothing scums must have used some special means, the prefect said. Men! Bring out the torture instruments. Looks like you and I will have to ride like the wind, I said to Heng Wen, through our technique. Let's wait for them to bring in the torture instruments. It still won't be too late to leave after I've taken a look, Heng Wen said. The prefectural runners carried in a set of clamping rods, then ignited a basin of fire and thrust a branding iron into it. Heng Wen shook his head. The prefect let the wooden block meet the table again. Apply the torture. The prefectural runners lifted the clamping rods and advanced. Just as Heng Wen and I were about to breezily make our escape, a cold voice rang from outside the hall. Hold it! A person strode across the threshold, and with a wave of his sleeve, swept away the prefectural runners who had gone over to stop him. He strolled into the hall and stood before Heng Wen to shield him. Who dares touch my young master, he said, his voice ice. Furball had picked the opportune time to appear before Heng Wen. The fox, thinking himself a charming romantic, had draped a long, white robe around himself. He had hidden away his fox ears and turned his silver hair black, presenting an ethereal sight as he stood before Heng Wen. Meaning no offense, but this immortal lord could destroy his tiny bit of cultivation with just a snap of my fingers. What's more, Heng Wen? There was simply no need for Furball to come. The prefect flew into a rage, and the hall descended into chaos. Shan Shengling, however, narrowed his eyes at the fox. You seem to be an old acquaintance. The fox stood in cold silence, only saying after a while, it's ludicrous for General Shan to frame my young master of murder, and even using torture to extort a confession. How many lives have been lost by General Shan's hands? And yet I don't see anyone arresting him. The fox raked a sinister gaze across the prefectural runners and prefect. He continued, still in that cold voice, speaking of which, General Shan and young Master Mu have yet another life on their hands recently in the Eastern Commandery, yes? Do you know why your Liuyang city is currently besieged on all sides with two great armies pressing in toward you? He looked again at the prefectural runners and the prefect, then glanced at Shan Shengling out of the corner of his eye. In order to save young Master Mu, a wanted fugitive by the imperial court, the General Shan in this very hall snuck into the Prince of the Eastern Commandery's manor and killed their third young master, Li Siming. That's why the Eastern Commandery joined forces with the imperial court. That's why they have assembled a large army to close in on Liuyang. Pitiful be you foolish mortals, who will pay with countless lives just for a feud that started because Shan Shengling killed someone for his own selfish desire. The prefectural runners all looked panic-stricken, while the prefect slammed the wooden block with a trembling hand. The audacity of you to slander the great general. Slander, the fox spat contemptuously. Ask Shan Shengling, then. Or wait until the Eastern Commandery's army arrives at the gate of Liuyang city to ask them. It was indeed smart of the fox to expose Shan Shengling, to make the people lose faith in him. Shan Shengling's expression remained unchanged as he narrowed his eyes. So, were there any bone fragments left in your cave when you returned that day? All at once, the fox's eyes turned red and burned with the fire of hatred. An ominous wind stirred, and ghostly clouds rose overhead. The fox's black hair fluttered up, revealing its original silvery white color. A pair of fox ears stood from that hair. The prefectural runners and prefect wailed and scurried, huddling together. Mortal, the fox snapped, you harmed the lives of those from my lair. I shall settle this blood debt today. Shan Shengling rose, laughing for all to hear as he drew his glinting steel blade. You finally show your true self, demon. I was negligent the other day by giving you reprieve. Watch how I eliminate your beastly existence today. I pulled Hengwen back a few steps, outside the eye of the storm. Shan Shengling was a mere mortal, unable to hold a significant advantage over the fox. This immortal lord would sit and watch the battle, and if Shan Shengling were to be torn to shreds and meet his end here, the blame would not likely fall on me. If the fox were to kill Shan Shengling, would he be slapped with the crime of murdering an immortal? Even if he did not, harming a mortal would make it all the more difficult for him to achieve immortality later. Should this immortal lord reach out and stop the fight? Hengwen was already worrying for the fox. Perhaps we should stop this fight first. It's not good if innocents are hurt in the crossfire. And besides, Xian Li might get charged with a crime if he wounds Shan Shengling. In that case, I'll put a stop to this, I answered. Stand here and don't do a thing. Hengwen smiled at that. I released his arm, and was just about to cast a spell when a faint voice wafted down from above. Song Yao Yuan Jun, Song Yao Yuan Jun. Hengwen Qing Jun. This voice. Is this not Minga? This immortal lord looked up with joy, as if encountering a welcome rain after a long drought. Concealed among several rays of golden light, Minga Xing Jun hurriedly cried, Song Yao Yuan Jun, quick, break up Shan Shengling and the fox. They can't fight. The fates as decreed by heaven naturally have their own plans in store for them. Damn, now you're shouting about heaven's decree. Where was heaven's decree all these days? This immortal lord was waiting for it. But in the heaven up above and the earth down below, the Jade Emperor's decree was the most absolute of all. I rose in the light and waved my sleeve in midair, stirring up a great gust of divine wind that blew away the fox's demonic clouds. Then I dropped a flash of heavenly lightning to split both men apart. Once the fox had been forced into its original form, I grabbed it by the scruff and vanished. I landed on a mountain far beyond Liuyang city. Hengwen was already waiting on a cliff. I set down the fox, and he begrudgingly shifted into human form, looking mightily grieved and defiant as he lowered his head and said nothing. I know Shan Shengling hurt everyone from your lair, and you want to kill him to take revenge, Heng Wen said, voice kind. However, if you wish to cultivate to immortality, you can't hurt humans or take their lives. Shan Shengling will get his just comeuppance someday as fate decrees. You can't injure him now. That's why Song Yao Yuan Jun stopped you. I hope you can understand and not blame us. The fox's head was still lowered, his ears drooping with inconsolable grief and indignation. Heng Wen continued, and thank you too, for what you did back there. Actually, Song Yao Yuan Jun and I can deal with this matter. You shouldn't have taken such a big risk. The fox raised his head to look into Heng Wen's eyes as he softly answered, I know Qing Jun's divine powers are immense, and you don't need me to save you, but Qing Jun, I hope you also remember that I will always step forth when you are in trouble, even if this paltry cultivation of mine is not of much use. This is the extent of my feelings toward Qing Jun. His tone was so thick with sweetness, it hurt this immortal lord's teeth. The fox continued with feeling, perhaps in the eyes of the immortal lords, demons and spirits are the lowest of the low. When a mortal kills a demon, it's considered a merit, but when a demon hurts a mortal, it's an unforgivable sin. But if all I have is this insignificant life and my meager demonic powers, I will protect someone I want to protect to the very end, even if I were to be completely obliterated. This immortal lord sucked in a breath of cool air and cut him off. Qing Jun is surely aware of your feelings to him, but you should know that the one listening a few meters away with his ears perked is Minga Xing Jun. If the heavenly court were to find out about your homoerotic feelings for Heng Wen Qing Jun, you would not be the only one obliterated. If you do not want to implicate Qing Jun, revisit this kind of talk another day. The tips of the fox's ears trembled as he raised his head, then lowered it again. In that case, I shall take my leave and stop holding you up. He gazed at Heng Wen, again with feelings so deep this immortal lord's hair stood on end. Only then did he turn into a gust of wind and leave. Book of Fate in hand, Minga Xing Jun walked to us from the other side of the cliff. He looked in the direction where the fox had left as the wind. This snow fox has a good foundation. Perhaps after 500 more years in the mortal world, we will be able to see him in the heavenly court. Xing Jun, does this also fall under the jurisdiction of your Book of Fate? I asked. Minga Xing Jun stroked his beard and smiled. Those who cultivate have already broken free of the cycle of reincarnation. So, by all reasoning, they do not fall under the jurisdiction of the heavenly court. However, he pressed down on the cover of the book, it is also possible that there's a spot for it in the Book of Fate. This is heaven's secret. I'm not at liberty to reveal it. I hardly see you descending to the mortal world of late, I remarked. Did you imitate Bihualing Jun and make off to the western paradise for tea? The tune you are singing is the same as his. Minga laughed, dryly. Sorry, Song Yao Yuan Jun, I'm truly sorry. It just so happens that there's a thorny issue in heavenly court this lord must attend to, which held me up for a few days. The Jade Emperor is concerned about Yuan Jun's trip this time around, and even used my observation mirror for a look. He's very satisfied with everything Yuan Jun has done over these last few days. My heart suddenly skipped a beat, but it was with a smile that I said, you flatter me. It's all thanks to Xing Jun for looking out for me. Minga then said to Heng Wen, how has Qing Jun been these days? The Jade Emperor asked after you and entrusted me to pass you a message on his behalf. The doctrine dialogue is just around the corner. When will you be returning to the heavenly court? I'm truly humbled that the Jade Emperor asked after me and had Xing Jun convey this message, Heng Wen said. If the affairs in this world are settled sooner, I'll report back to the heavenly court. If not, I'll return to the heavenly court when the day comes around and ask the Jade Emperor to send someone else down to the mortal world to assist Song Yuan Jun. May I trouble Xing Jun to convey this reply on my behalf? Minga cupped his hands. Do rest assured, Qing Jun. I will surely pass your message on to the Jade Emperor. After all this rambling had concluded, Minga began to flip through the Book of Fate's pages. This immortal lord, always uneasy at the sight of it, asked, "Xing Jun, can you show me the words in your book first? Verbally spoken words are not as clear as the written ones. Only once I've studied them carefully can I do a better job at putting the Jade Emperors and your mind at ease." The body of the Daoist priest Guanjian was still being held in the prefectural office. I had exposed my immortality there, and now did not know what they would turn me into next to get close to Tianchu. Minga Xingjun knew the past few incidents were fresh in this immortal lord's mind. He held his book to his bosom, not wanting to hand it over, yet finding it hard to say no. After this moment of hesitation, he stroked his beard. "Actually, Yuan Jun's trip down to the mortal world is about to come to an end." Come to an end? I had achieved precious little in splitting the lovebirds up, and now it was all about to end? "Yuan Jun may lie low and stay in hiding in the city," Minga said. "In less than 2 days, there will be a conclusion to this matter." He showed me a few lines from the book. "Shan Shengling and Mu Ruian's lifetimes come to an end. Tianchu Star and immortal Nanming enter the cycle of reincarnation once again." Reading this, my little heart trembled. In being born as a human for a lifetime, one would become a life in itself, and yet the Jade Emperor simply proclaimed death on them at the mere drop of a hat. However, I had no idea how Mu Ruian and Shan Shengling would meet their end. Old man Minga was unwilling to tell me. He only heaved a long sigh. "It's not that I'm trying to fob you off. We have, after all been fellow immortals for several thousand years. No one could feel good learning of this ending. Had I not been the one to write the book of fate, I wouldn't have wanted to know either. To know and yet to have to watch helplessly as events unfold is probably something neither of you could do. It will only be for a few days. You will naturally understand once the time comes around." Minga gazed regretfully at the clouds high above, where the mist was thin. "I believe I just saw the word Tianchu Star circled by a golden circle in the Book of Fate," Heng Wen asked mildly. "What is that about?" His words gave me a start. A golden circle? How had this immortal lord not seen it? Minga Xingjun closed the Book of Fate. He crinkled up his aged face to say with a smile, "Probably a mark the first made for fear of writing the wrong word. When I was on the boat with Tianchu, I thought I saw a similar thin ring around the little finger on his left hand, like it was tied with a golden thread," Heng Wen said. "I know that. Yu Lao has secured a red thread of fate between Tianchu and Nanming this lifetime, but since when was there another, golden one?" Minga Xingjun raised a sleeve to wipe his forehead. "Qingjun, since you already know everything, why keep pressing me? Every cause has its effect, and every effect, a cause. And sometimes, the seeds one sows and reaps are convoluted and a pain to keep track of." "Please rest assured, Xingjun," Heng Wen said. "This lord will not reignite what the Jade Emperor has quelled and sealed." However, a smile as he glanced at this immortal lord from the corner of his eye. Could the golden thread on Tianchu's hand come from the same source as the so-called rumor of the heavenly court? "What rumor?" this immortal lord tactlessly asked. Minga said nothing, and Heng Wen continued, "The thread of the immortal bond. Have you never heard of it before?" I had indeed never heard of it. Minga was all sighs as he said. "Actually, I guess it could also be considered the ill-fated affinity between Tianchu Xingjun and Nanming Dijun. Could you be more specific?" I asked, but on seeing the pair's unfathomable expressions, I sensibly added, "If it's a secret of heaven, then forget I asked." Minga sighed again. "It's really no secret," Heng Wen said. "It has been said that when Tianchu Star and Nanming Dijun were first born, they shone and reflected each other, inextricably connected. Tianchu Star was originally the star of emperors, one who protects and blesses the preordained son of heaven with the aura of an emperor in the mortal world, while Nanming Dijun was in charge of the fortunes and destiny of a nation. Both immortals mutually complemented and assisted each other as if they were one. So the legend goes, a thread of immortal bond was later formed between Nanming Dijun and Tianchu Xingjun. Actually, this thread is somewhat similar to Yu Lao's red thread of fate, mutually binding them in an entanglement of immeasurable love, adoration, and tender affection. So it turned out that Tianzhu and Nanming had this deep a past. Could the Jade Emperor have banished Tianzhu and Nanming to the mortal world this time to sever that thread of love? We're setting up love trails, Yu Lao's red thread of fate, and even this immortal lord, all just to sever their love with another kind of love? Mingle looked back at this immortal lord, still saying nothing. It's too late. Heng Wen shook his head and said in a heavy voice, the thread of immortal bond has a slip knot and a dead knot. A slip knot can be undone, but the one on Tianzhu's hand now is a dead knot, if the tales are true, cannot be undone unless he is completely obliterated. I was stunned. Actually, Minga faltered, the Jade Emperor made such an arrangement, only because he was also trying to think of a way to undo it. After all. He sighed loudly, shaking his head. He patted this immortal lord on the shoulder in passing, then cupped his hands to Heng Wen. I still have some trivial matters to attend to in the heavenly court, so I shall take my leave first. Then, riding the wind and the clouds, he returned to the heavenly court. End chapter.